What's up, everyone, and welcome to an episode of Rich Talks BS. Week 9 of the NFL has just passed, and there are some pretty good games, some close ones, not so close ones. We start with the Thursday night game, Packers versus 49ers, Packers 34, Niners 17. Aaron Rodgers with 305 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. Jones also led the rush with 15 attempts on 58 yards, also bringing in 5 catches and 21 yards. 111 yards rushing as a team. Devontae Adams led passing in 10 catches, 173 yards, and 1 touchdown. Valdes-Scantling also had 53 yards and 2 touchdowns. Mason Crosby was 2 for 2. Nick Mullins, who came in for the injured Garoppolo, had 291 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Jerick McKinnon led the rush with 15 attempts, 52 yards, and 1 touchdown, but they only had 55 yards rushing as a team. Richie James led with 9 catches, 184 yards, and 1 touchdown. Robbie Gould was 1 for 1. Green Bay took over on the time of possession, and this was Rodgers' comeback game after losing 2 straight. Also, they took advantage of the 49ers, who, again, Garoppolo out, and George Kittle also out, along with other injuries as well. Lions versus the Vikings. Lions 20, Vikings 34. Stafford led with 211 yards passing, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Swift, also with 13 attempts, 64 yards, had 1 reception, 5 yards. Amendola led the receivers with 7 catches and 77 yards. Hackerson and Jones also came in with a touchdown. Kirk Cousins, 220 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook took over with 22 attempts, 220 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns. Also brought in 2 catches for 46 yards. Abdullah came in with a touchdown. Smith also came in with 2 touchdowns as well. Minnesota had an average of 8.9 yards per play, just taking over the game, mixing up Stafford, a couple of injuries here and there, just dominating them, especially with Dalvin Cook taking over like that. Ravens and Colts. Ravens 24, Colts 10. Lamar Jackson had 170 yards passing, but led the rushers with 13 attempts on 58 yards and scored. J.K. Dobbins also had 12 attempts with 30 yards, Edwards with 23 yards and a touchdown. Nick Boyle led the receivers with 4 catches, 46 yards, Brown with 3 catches, 38 yards, and Snead with 4 catches and 37 yards. They had 3 fumbles and lost 1 of them. Phillip Rivers with 227 yards passing and 1 interception. George Wilkins led the rushers with 11 attempts and 39 yards. Jonathan Taylor also had 27 yards and a touchdown. Pascal led the receivers with 5 catches, 55 yards. Pittman with 4 catches, 56 yards. They had 2 fumbles and lost 1 of them. They had 55 tackles as a team. The third down percentage went to Baltimore, with 38%, Indy with 16%. They shook up Phillip Rivers and the offense. The Colts just couldn't get anything going. Panthers, Chiefs. Panthers 31, Chiefs 33. Bridgewater had 310 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 rushing attempts for 19 yards, and he scored on 1 of them. McCaffrey, with his first game back, 18 attempts, 69 yards, and a touchdown, bringing in 10 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown. And he ended the game with 151 total yards, also with the bad injury at the end of the game. Curtis Samuel led the receivers with 9 catches, 105 yards, 1 touchdown. Robbie Anderson also had 9 catches and 63 yards. Defense didn't make many stops, and it kind of hurt them towards the end. The Panthers had a good comeback. They have a good offense, great defense. Kind of shook up Mahomes a little bit, but not much, not too much to win the game. Mahomes had 372 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. The Chiefs only had 30 yards rushing as a team, with Edwards-Helaire leading with 14 yards. Kelsey led the receivers, 10 catches, 159 yards, but no scores. Tyreek with 9 catches, 113 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Demarcus Robinson also came in with a touchdown. Edwards-Helaire came in with a receiving touchdown as well. Carolina took over on time of possession. It just didn't work out in their favor, with kind of a little bit more winning towards the end of the game. They were in a pretty good shootout with Mahomes, but just couldn't finish it. And the Chiefs need to pick up on their rush game to stay, in contendership for the Super Bowl. You got to have a run game behind that pass game too. So, Mahomes don't be scared to run. Seattle and Buffalo. Seattle 34, Buffalo 44. Russell had 390 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He also had a rushing touchdown and 2 lost fumbles. DJ Dallas led rushers with 31 rushing yards and a touchdown. DK Metcalf leading the receivers with 7 catches, 108 yards, and 1 touchdown. Moore had 4 catches of 78 yards and a touchdown as well. Josh Allen, great comeback with 415 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and he rushed 1 in. Zach Moss also rushed in 1 also. But they only had 34 rushing yards as a team. Stephon Diggs led the receivers with 9 catches, 118 yards. John Brown had 8 catches and 99 yards. Gabriel Davis had 70 yards and 1 touchdown. McKenzie and Tyler Kroft also came in with the receiving touchdown. The run game just couldn't get started for both teams. They got great offenses. They have running backs. They have, quarterbacks that can actually move around and get some yards. Both teams just couldn't get the run game going. But Buffalo just took over, and when they took over, they just ran with it. Kept scoring. They won the shootout against Russell Wilson. And Russ, if you have another bad game like this, I'm probably like 1 or 2, maybe not even 2, just one more bad game, then you're not even gonna be in the talks for MVP. Broncos Falcons. Broncos 27, Falcons 34. Drew Lock had 313 yards passing, 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. He also led the rushers with 47 rushing yards and a touchdown. Lindsey only had 23 yards. They had 103 yards as a team. Jerry Jeudy led the receivers with 7 catches, 125 yards, 1 touchdown. Hamler also with 6 catches, 75 yards, and Tim Patrick had 29 yards and a touchdown. Matt Ryan, 284 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Gurley led the running backs with 19 attempts, 53 yards, and 1 touchdown, and they had 92 rushing yards as a team. Zacchaeus led with 4 catches, 103 yards, and 1 touchdown. Hurst had 62 yards. Jones with 54 yards and a touchdown. The Falcons are looking way better, especially after starting the season 0-5, making personnel changes. They're making better moves, better decisions, but kind of still in that thing of losing leads. They allowed the Broncos to come back, but they kept the lead and they kept the W. But your defense gotta pick it up. You can't be allowing the other team to keep coming back time after time after time. You kind of got away with this when they won, but you can't keep letting that happen. Bears Titans. Bears 17, Titans 24. Foles with 335 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. David Montgomery led the running backs with 30 yards rushing, but he also lost the fumble. They only had 56 rushing yards as a team. Allen Robinson led the receivers with 7 catches, 81 yards. Miller also had 59 yards, but he lost a fumble. Graham and Ryan Nall also brought in 1 touchdown. Tannehill, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry led the running backs with 21 attempts and 68 yards. And they had 92 rushing yards as a team. A.J. Brown led the receivers with 4 catches, 101 yards, and 1 touchdown. Jonnu Smith also brought in 1 touchdown. Defense was good for the first 3 quarters for the Titans, but they gave up 17 in the 4th quarter. Bears looked better offensively, but they just couldn't score when it counted. The Bears offense was putting up better numbers than the Titans offense. It's just, you got to finish your plays. You got to finish and score. You got to get these first downs, and you just got to put a little bit more into it. When Foles gets pressured, he gets kind of nervous. I mean, he had 36 completions on 52 attempts. So he was slinging the ball around. You got to do a little bit more. The offensive line got to pick it up a little bit more. Got to take care of Foles. And the Titans, Titans just kind of had an okay game, but they got away with it because the Bears were kind of putting themselves in that situation to lose the game. Raiders, Chargers. Raiders 31, Chargers 26. David Carr had 165 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and he lost the fumble. Booker with 8 attempts, rushing attempts of 68 yards and 1 touchdown. Josh Jacobs also had 14 attempts, 65 yards and 1 touchdown. They had 160 rushing yards as a team. Renfro led with 2 catches, 60 yards. Waller also had 5 catches, 22 yards and a touchdown. Aguilar also had 55 yards and 1 touchdown. Justin Herbert was 326 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He also rushed 5 times for 24 yards. Balaj had 15 attempts with 69 yards and 1 touchdown. They had 128 rushing yards as a team. Keenan Allen led the receivers with 9 catches, 103 yards, and 1 touchdown. Mike Williams had 5 catches for 81 yards. Defense didn't do much on stopping the Raiders. The Raiders didn't stay on the field long, but they did enough to win. They did enough to stay ahead. They had okay numbers, but your defense allowed them to keep it going, to keep up the lead, and your defense just shot yourself in the foot. Justin Herbert had a good game. He's just great as a rookie. He's smart. He's making good decisions. It's just your defense is killing you. Your defense got to step it up, and you can't keep letting your defense pull you down after you've done so much, and you're looking better offensively, and you can win the game. But your defense doesn't allow your offense to keep that lead, as they keep losing the leads or just can't keep up with the opposite team. Dolphins, Cardinals. Dolphins 34, Cardinals 31. Tua Tagovailoa had 248 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He also rushed 7 times for 35 yards. Ahmed had 7 attempts with 38 yards. Jordan Howard had 10 attempts, 19 yards, and 1 touchdown. They had 91 rushing yards as a team. Devontae Parker led with 6 catches, 64 yards. Preston Williams had 4 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Matt Collins also brought in a touchdown. Kyler Murray had 283 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. With the rushing attack of 11 attempts, 106 yards, and 1 touchdown. He had 389 total yards, but he also lost the fumble. Chase Edwards had 25 attempts, 70 yards. They had 178 yards as a team, and the run game is just crazy, and they're running over defenses, and especially a good defense like the Dolphins. Christian Kirk led the receivers with 5 catches, 123 yards, and 1 touchdown. Fitz only had 54 yards. Hopkins only had 30 yards. Daniels and Max Williams brought in a receiving touchdown. They had 3 sacks on defense. Even with the way Tagovailoa has been moving around, they were still able to sack him 3 times. He kind of looked like he had weights on his feet. He didn't look as nimble or as swift as he did, back in the Alabama days. The Dolphins defense, though, is surprisingly good. They're, I think, like number 1 on 3rd down conversions. And, this was an even match. Tua versus Kyler. It's a really good matchup, really good game. Too bad they're not in the same division, because it'd be really exciting to see them play each other twice a year. Maybe sometime in the future it might be possible to see them twice a year, but that would be regular season game and a possible Super Bowl. But that's a little too far ahead to predict. Steelers, Cowboys. Steelers 24, Cowboys 19. Big Ben had 306 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Connor only had 22 yards. They had 46 rushing yards as a team. Juju Smith-Schuster had 6 catches, 93 yards, and 1 touchdown. Johnson also had 6 catches for 77 yards. Claypool had 8 catches for 69 yards. Ebron had 3 catches and a touchdown. Washington also had a touchdown. Fitzpatrick had the interception in the 4th quarter. The defense was okay, but they also allowed a lot of more rushing yards than they've had all season. Offense took a while to get together, but that's behind 2 mistakes. And with that, it was Garrett Gilbert with 243 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. This was his first NFL start, and he did pretty good. Also rushed for three attempts and 28 yards. Tony Pollard had 9 attempts with 57 yards. Zeke had 18 attempts, 51 yards. They had 144 rushing yards as a team, and to get it on the Steelers defense was pretty big. Trying to keep the lead, but 2 mistakes, with the fumble and the interception, that hurt them, and that allowed the Steelers to come back and to win the game. CeeDee Lamb led the receivers with 4 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown. His fumble loss, that was one of the mistakes. Cooper had 5 catches, 67 yards. The defense was good. Two giveaways allowing the Steelers to come back, like I mentioned before, but the defense was good. The Steelers are an okay offense anyway. They're, to me, looking like they look like 2000s Ravens, where they had a good defense but an okay offense, where their defense were winning all their games. So it was still a pretty good game. No one expected for the score to be as close as it was, and especially no one expected for the Cowboys to lead as long as they did in the game also. Saints 38, Bucks 3. Drew Brees threw for 222 yards, 4 touchdowns, and with his 4 touchdowns, he went ahead by 3 in the passing touchdown record, who has Tom Brady right behind him. But he had a fumble loss. Hill had 7 attempts, 54 yards. He was also 2 for 2 and 48 yards passing. Kamara had 9 attempts for 40 yards and a touchdown. Latavius Murray had 10 attempts for 39 yards. Thomas came back. Thomas had 5 catches, 51 yards. Adam Troutman had 3 catches, 1 touchdown. Sanders had 4 catches and a touchdown. Traquan and Josh Hill had a touchdown also. They had 3 fumbles and 2 of them were lost. 3 interceptions on defense, stopping pretty much everything the Bucs had, and they had 3 sacks. Tom Brady was 209 yards passing, no touchdowns, but 3 interceptions, and they only rushed for 8 yards as a team. Fournette had 6 catches, 41 yards. Mike Evans with 4 catches, 64 yards. And then with Antonio Brown coming back in his first game back in a couple of years, he had 3 catches for 31 yards. The Bucs just couldn't get anything going, and it just started from the beginning. Drew Brees came out, the Saints came out, the whole offense and defense, they were ready. They knew what was coming ahead. They knew a little bit more about this Bucs team compared to the first week. Where they blew them out then, and it is just starting to look like the Saints and Drew Brees have Tom Brady's number, and there's a possible round 3, sometime maybe early in the playoffs or deep into the playoffs, as they're both fighting for the top spot in the NFC South. And then we end with the Monday night game. Patriots-Jets. Patriots 30, Jets 27. Cam, 274 yards passing, but then he rushed for 10 and 16 yards with 2 touchdowns. Damian Harris had 14 attempts, 71 yards. Burkhead with 12 attempts, 56 yards, and 1 touchdown. They had 159 rush yards as a team. They're, kind of already known as a rushing team a little bit more now that Cam took, less attempts, and he wasn't actually leading the team in rushing like he has been earlier in the year. They were doing good on the rush, and to be as limited as they are on offense, they were putting up numbers. Jacoby Myers led the receivers with 12 catches, 169 yards. Bird had 5 catches for 65 yards. Joe Flacco, having the start, and had 262 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Frank Gore with 12 rushing attempts, 46 yards. P. Ryan with 6 attempts, 19 yards. They only had 65 rushing yards as a team. Brashard Perriman led the receivers with 5 catches, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jameson Crowder also came in with a touchdown. Their defense stepped up in the second half. You know, they were up ahead in the beginning. You know, looked like they were gonna pull out the win. Patriots, you know, just couldn't score, and you know, up until the fourth quarter, I guess the Jets kind of remembered, hey, we actually need to lose this game so we can get the first pick and try to go after Trevor Lawrence. But it's kind of like you guys kind of don't need Trevor Lawrence. You just need to build on what you have or actually trade that number 1 pick and go get a different quarterback. My suggestion would be Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan needs to leave Atlanta anyway. He's you know, he's kind of picking it up there, but still can't do what he can't. He's not doing what he needs to do to kind of keep his job. They're already hurting anyway. There's personnel changes and you know stuff like that. But Jets, I'd rather you trade and go get Matt Ryan, and you know at least Matt Ryan can help out with developing your quarterback. You know, it's just the beginning of his career, but you know he could use a little mentor, a better mentor than Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco actually had a pretty good game, which was kind of surprising, but hey, that's just how it goes. You know, you guys need that first pick, so do what you got to do. And that concludes week 9 of the NFL. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hit the like button at the bottom, subscribe,